Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of 10 Chat Shenanigans. Today, we'll be working on Little Blue. This is my wife's 1990 Ford Ranger XLT, and it has an original 75,000 miles on it. This has been a little farm truck around here, and it is in immaculate shape because it has not been used for farm truck things other than to go into town and go get stuff. And that's all it's been used for. But it runs, it drives. That'll be later in the video. What we're more focused on in this one is the rear end. So I was driving it a couple weeks ago and I noticed that I kept hearing this like swishing noise, almost like a brake was hanging, and I was like, that's weird, but then it kind of go away. And then I got under it and I looked, and then I realized that the entire drum was wet and it smelled like gear oil, meaning an axle seal went out. So I have two new axle seals, new brake shoes, brake drums, brake hardware, and wheel cylinders because I'm not taking any chances. So I'm going to go get the jack and we'll get old Blue or Little Blue picked up and get right to work. And if you notice, I have a microphone on because I don't know how to read apparently. And I've been using this thing wrong the whole time. I have to go into my camera settings and click wired microphone, not just hook it up and hope it works. So hopefully the sound quality on this video is a whole lot better than it's ever been. So let's join this journey together. All right, she's up in the air on our $1 million lift, aka Harbor Freight jack stands. Don't do the Harbor Freight jack stand thing. We have a cinder block in front of the tires just because safety. And let's see if y'all can hear it. I'm not sure y'all can really pick that up, but there's just a slight grind. 19 millimeter, of course. And I'm gonna pop all two wheels off, see if the drums will come off pretty easy. That way we can get an idea of what we're about to be opening up. This will not be done today because it is already 7:30 and it is Tuesday. But hopefully it'll be done by Thursday. All right, so one thing I did want to kind of mention that I thought was pretty neat. If you ever find yourself in a scenario where you've got one of these old Rangers or one of these old Ford trucks and you don't know if you have 9-inch or 10-inch drums, let me see if I can get y'all at a better angle where y'all can see a little bit better. Oh no, I can actually see perfect. The 9-inch, I'm sure if I'm wrong, someone in the comments is going to correct me. So don't take just my word for it. Do your own research, but typically just the 9-inch ones have little fins. Please don't be an axle seal. Please just be a wheel cylinder. I say as I am fairly certain. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, heck, the drums look fine. Shoes are wet down at the bottom. Okay. So yeah, that's why we got everything. And I'm sure the wheel cylinders are gonna decide to, die when I get everything off. Let me bring y'all in a little closer so y'all can get a better look. All right, so this is kind of what we're looking at. One key thing, I want to make mention of this. I really want to stress this. Drum brakes look scary. They really do. Lots of springs, lots of bars, lots of adjusters, unlike disc brakes. Don't be scared of them. The best thing you can do in order to remember how everything was is simply get your phone and just take a picture. Picture of every angle you possibly can. Get all your side profiles, everything you want down at the bottom. And that way you remember how everything looks. But as you can see down there, it is nice and wet. If you look in there, you see how everything is wet. Because axle seal has committed goodbye. So let's pop off the other side and see how it looks, because I bought a set of everything, because why not? We're here already. So, also look how flat that leaf spring is. This thing has been overloaded just a few times. I may upgrade that eventually, because this is my wife's vehicle, but I don't know. I kind of like the old stock Ranger, little 4-cylinder with 8 spark plugs. Neat. Anywho, let me stop blabbering and get on the other side and rip it off, and that way I can bring all my parts out here and start tearing it apart. Okay, I was incorrect on the leaking wheel seal causing the scrape. The scraping noise would be from that cable is the parking brake cable. Yeah, I think it's the parking brake cable. That was in the drum, and this spring was broke. So it was grinding because the spring is just gone, broken completely. So in an instance like this, it's good to, I'll tear this side down first instead of that side, and that way I can have that one to reference to. But yeah, I took this drum off and I was like, huh, something looks missing. And this something was sitting in the drum. You can actually see on this edge and this lip where it's just been rubbing. So yeah, that would have been, that means this one just like wasn't doing anything. Like it wasn't returning back on itself. It was just existing out here. So yeah, good thing I checked this before I just let her drive off. So yeah, we're gonna get the parts out here and start chipping away at this. Huh. All right, we're back out here again, and I got the new shoes, hardware kit, and all that on. I didn't film this side because I was trying to figure everything out on how all the springs went and everything, but I am going to film the other side because we're doing the axle seal. So I got to pop off that rear cover on the diff, drain it out, and I got to pull, I think, 2 bolts and a clip, and the whole axle will slide out, and then I can get that get the seal out and pop the new one in there. And then I've got to reseal it and refill it. So I'll have to go run to town and get some oil, but yeah, this side's done, so we're going to move on to the other side. I did not replace wheel cylinders because I don't feel like doing brake lines right now, and they felt like they were about to break. So, yeah. But they're not leaking, so I was just going to replace them because I had everything apart. But since they're not leaking, I'm going to just leave them. So, I'm going to set y'all up so I can get under here and drain this rear diff, and then we'll start on the other side. We are now under the truck because I don't have a lift, and I am on the ground. So, this is the rear cover. You gotta pop these little 13mm bolts out, take the ones all the way around. This little tag here means that it's got a limited slip and to use synthetic oil, and it's a little stuck, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get this paint scraper and very, very lightly tap all the way around it to try to break that seal where it can drain out. And I'm gonna, when I go back with it, I've got some stuff that when I worked heavy duty, we used it to seal the differentials, so I know it'll work for this. It's called Anaerobic Gasket Maker, made by Permatex. We called it grape jelly because it looks like grape jelly, but it works great. So I'm gonna get this off, get it draining, and that way I can get the, there's a clip and I think 2 little bolts I gotta take out on the to get the axle out, and that's literally all that holds it in. So I'm gonna get to work on that. I just wanted to kind of go through all that process before I just broke it off and was like, all right, yeah, here we are. All right, so As you can see, I've gone all the way around it with a paint scraper, and now it is leaking out the rear end honey. So I'm going to kind of try to catch all that I can. And I got some in my hands, and it doesn't smell good. But I'm going to pop this cover off and let it drain. But yeah, it doesn't take much, just a little tap. You don't want to gouge anything on the housing or anything. And then once we get done and all this is done, we'll take the same paint scraper and scrape all the old sealant off. Okay, this is going to be a little difficult for me to film, so I'm going to try to explain it the best I can right now and then kind of explain it again after I get it out. So in order to get that axle out, that one, that's the one we're trying to do, the driver's side. There's an 8mm bolt right here that holds this pin in, that holds the spiders in. You got to get that pin out. You take this bolt, drop this pin down, and you can slide the axle in to get a clip out of it. There's a little clip. Y'all probably can't see because it's too dark. Let me see if I can get a light in there. It looks like a little washer around it. That's a clip. So that comes out. So I'm going to do my best to get this thing out. I don't think I'll be able to film it. I just don't have enough room. If I had a lift, I'd be able to show y'all a lot better, but I don't. So I'll do the best I can for right now. Let me get all this kind of set up where I can bring y'all back, kind of show y'all a little bit better. All right, pin is out. Just looks like this. Make sure when you're getting this thing out to use a 6-point 1/4-inch drive 5/16 to break it loose. If not, it'll try to round off because it's yellow Loctite in there. But as you can see, I've got the axle pushed all the way in that I can, and you see that little washer thing? That's the clip. Now once you get to this point and everything's like this, do not try to rotate anything because it will cause one of those spider gears to try to come out. So I'm going to try to get in there and just move that little clip. Just the clip, not the axle, nothing, because it should rotate on the shaft. So I'm going to try to move that so I can get to the tabs and get it out of place, and then we'll slide the axle out so we can replace that seal. Alright, the little clip is out. It's just a little U-shape. It's actually loose enough that you can just grab a little magnet and come right off. As long as you push it in all the way, you can get it out with a magnet. So let's go ahead and slide the axle out and then get that seal in and replace the brakes on this side and we'll be done. Alright, I got my new axle seal in. Once I got that little clip out, the axle just slid right out. I didn't have a seal installer, so I used a 2x4. If it leaks, I'm going to go buy a seal installer. But I don't think it should. Everything seems to be pretty happy. Make sure everything's cleaned off nice and good in there. This is a 2-wheel drive Ranger, and the part number off of Rock Auto, there's 2 different part numbers, so I ordered both because they were like $1 a piece. The part number for this 2-wheel drive 1990 Ranger is a WS866, come on focus, 0S. There it goes. It also gives you some extra numbers on there of different, seals. But yeah, now I got to just do the brakes, reseal the rear end, and then go to town and get some fluid, because that was the one thing that I forgot to get was fluid. So I'm going to see if I can get y'all set up once I get all of this kind of taken apart. Get y'all set up so that way, I can show you kind of how it goes back together. Alright, this is probably the best place I can get for y'all. But just for getting all this apart, I like to use a big screwdriver. You can kind of get underneath these springs and pop that one off. Come on. Sometimes it works well, sometimes it doesn't. It's just kind of a hat toss depending on the spring system it's got. Alright, and then there's going to be this adjuster cable and this little piece here. That's a very important piece. Kind of keeps everything in check. Get these fire hazards out of here. Move my drone. And then for these little, get out of there. Always try to keep your hardware together with whatever it came off with. Try to keep it together that way. That way you don't misplace anything, lose anything, and that way you know how something went on there if you didn't take a picture. But I did take a picture of everything. So for these little springs here that have the pin, get you a regular pair of pliers, and you can, if you can do this, I can do this with this angle. You can hold the pin on the back and just shove and rotate. They make special tools for this, but not everyone has those special tools. So it's easier to just twist that off and stick that over there. And then do the same thing to the other side. And then we will pull these apart. There went my adjuster. That all goes on the bottom. And then there's this little bar in the middle that needs to go on before you put the springs on. That's a very important piece. Alright, I'm going to get all my springs and everything and set them up correctly, and then I'm going to start putting everything back on. I'm not doing wheel cylinders, just like I said on the other side. Those lines felt like they were going to break, and I don't feel like doing brake lines today. Alright, when you're going back on with all your shoes and your springs and everything, after, you know, watching Pole Barn Garage a lot, he has this great analogy to remember your brake shoes and the orientation is bob, big on back. Because if you look, one brake shoe is actually taller and thicker than the other. Therefore, bob, big on back. So you're going to just hook your parking brake assembly doohickey majig up there. These are all technical terms. I was fighting, ow, that was a fender. I'll put that spring on in a second. I was fighting trying to get that stuff on the other side. I've been trying to figure out an easier way to do so. And by that I mean fighting that red spring right there. But you know, when you're going back on with all this, it's gonna go like this. Try to get it kind of in place. It'll make it a little bit easier. It would be a lot easier if this thing wasn't fighting me. But it probably senses that it's about 100 degrees outside, and I'm ready to go inside and have a nice ice cold glass of sweet tea and sit in the AC for a little bit. Ah, come on. There we go. Okay. And then try to slide it over into place because it's a little crooked right now. Just like that. And then this red spring goes in like that. And maybe slightly easier. Still gonna fight it a little bit, I'm sure, because it's a spring. And springs like to do what they want. Yeah, there it goes. But it made it a little bit easier to do with that without putting that those top springs on first. All right, I'll put that on in a second. Okay, so basically when you take them off, or when you put them back on, it's the reverse order of taking them off. So I'm gonna get all this slapped back together and then I guess reseal the rear end and go from there. All right, got everything on. Let me grab my new drum actually. Alright, new drum acquired. Always make sure you get a new brake drum, brake rotor, to give it a little spray of some brake clean, just because they are shipped with oil to keep them from rusting, because they all come from overseas. So you want to get that oil off, because oil and brakes don't go together too well. Get that all sprayed up, and then what you're gonna want to do when you get these on is just you slide the drum on. You see how loose that is? What we're gonna do is take our screwdriver and we're going to screw out this adjuster until it's not a super tight fit. Like, you still want to be able to grab it to get it off, but just so it's got just a slight amount of drag. I'm trying to remember how far I had to go with the other one. About that far. Just add a little more. But you're just going to want to kind of push it out and let it unscrew, and the axle seal was leaking directly onto this thing, so it will never have an issue of being stuck. That's close enough. The adjuster, when I pump the brakes a few times, will take care of the rest. But yeah, I'm not going to use that anaerobic gasket maker for this rear end because it has a plastic cover. So I'm going to go run to town, go get some black silicone and some 75-140 for the rear end, so I can fill everything up and get it back on the ground and make sure everything's still good. Because I haven't driven this thing in a good little minute, so I'll need to, I want to do that just to make sure everything's good and still happy, not unhappy with me. So yeah, let me go run to town and go do that, and then I'll be right back. All right, guys, so we're back under here. We got all our parts. I couldn't use the anaerobic gasket maker because this thing has a sorry about that. Because this thing has a plastic diff cover. So I'm using Ultra Black, and I have y'all propped up on the diff cover actually. So I've got it mostly cleaned off. What you're gonna want to do is just make you a nice little bead all the way around this housing. If you get a little, it's going to squeeze out whatever it doesn't want on this sealing surface, but you want to make sure that all of your bolt holes, it's on the top side. And I'm sure some people have different methods. This is how I've always done it when I'm resealing something like this. And just kind of glob it on. Like I said, it's going to push out what it doesn't want. But make sure you get the Ultra Black. It is oil resistant, so it's meant for things like this. And I'm sure you can hear the thunder in the back. I'm kind of trying to race against the weather. But now that we have all this on, I'm going to get this cover bolted on and start filling it with fluid. Okay, it's very dark now. Our cover is back on. All the bolts are tight. This silicone needs to kind of sit up for a little bit before it can, golly, it got dark. Before it can really be oil resistant, so we have to let it sit for a little bit. But went ahead and threw the tires back on, got everything tightened up, and And when everything sets up, I'm gonna refill it with oil. But I think by that time it's gonna be so loud y'all won't be able to hear anything I'm saying. So I'm gonna just kind of say this. I got some STP 7590. It's a GL5, so it's got everything it needs. It holds about 3.5 quarts. So I've just got 4 quarts because it's $10 a quart. But yeah, our wheels are back on. Golly, it's about to get bad. Our wheels are back on, new drums, new shoes, hardware, and an axle seal. Well, guys, thank you for watching. Yeah, that thunder's getting really bad. It's about to get nasty here. Thank you for watching. You know, we did some basically just maintenance work on Lil Blue, but she's a good little truck. Less than 100,000 miles on it, all original miles, 1990 Ranger. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and hit the little bell icon so you don't miss any more content. I'm having some more parts for a very exciting project, my little boy's project, coming next week. So y'all make sure y'all stay tuned for that. And tomorrow I may film a little bit here and there. I'm helping my dad work on his old truck. So hopefully I'll be able to put a little bit out for that. But yeah, thank y'all for watching. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and hit the little bell icon so you never miss another episode.